you drove like that on the public road, you deserve to be called a maniac! That's toast! That's bad!
The Netherlands Spoorwegen Verlengden Materiaal, which will be thankfully referred to as the VIRM throughout this video, is a 4 or 6 car long Dutch double-decker electric multiple unit, built by Talbot and Dietrich, just before Bombardier and Alstom took them over respectively. The VIRM has forced its way into becoming the most widespread intercity train in the Netherlands, and is the only thing more common across the country than particulates of oxygen. It was also the first Dutch train I rode on back in 2013. They can be seen serving impeccably pronounced locations such as Amsterdam Bijlmer, Den Helder, Vlissingen, Blerick, Goes, Edwageningen, Den Haagland van Nieuw Woestendier, Veenendel Dietlok, Rotterdam Blaak, Eindhoven Stadion, Hillen, Lelystad Centrum, Delft, Assen, Dieren. And frankly I can go on forever, because these trains serve way too many places in the Netherlands to list. Has the VIRM done the bare minimum and provided good service in the last 30 years, or is it running purely as a consequence of there being nothing else in the toy box worth using? Let's find out. This is the first double-decker train we are looking at in this series, so we'll go over the concept of it before we properly review the VIRM. The obvious advantage a double-decker train offers in general when compared to a standard-sized train, ignoring the obvious cool factor a double-decker train provides, is a noticeable increase in passenger capacity whilst having the carriages at the same length. When compared to the other 4-car intercity train of the Netherlands, the Koploper, a 4-car VIRM unit offers a 52% increase in total seating, despite being only 1.5 meters longer. That's rather impressive when you also remember that we aren't factoring in standing room into the capacity too. Because of this, double-decker trains have seen usage across almost all of Europe, as being able to double the capacity of a train without having to make the train 300 or 400 meters long is very helpful from a logistical standpoint. It can be really helpful not having to make the platforms at a random station in the middle of nowhere 410 meters long, just so the one rush hour train a day can squeeze in. Not that I'm saying that it's illegal to have super long double-decker trains or anything, as Belgium likes to run 11-car long intercity trains to Blankenberge. Yes, 11 coaches, which doesn't feel right to me for some reason. And overcrowding still happens in the summer by the way. Some double-decker trains are also capable of high speeds, from 200 or even 320 km per hour, aiding in capacity issues on very demanding routes, such as taking holidaymakers to the coast, the Alps, or even just between major cities. Okay, this one in the video would be going fast, but the French signaler is currently out to lunch, so apologies for that. Even in other continents across the globe such as Asia, Oceania, and our mates in North America don't shy away from the opportunity to run double-decker trains on a variety of routes. Whether those be commuter services, regional expresses, intercity routes, or 45-hour long sleeper trains. You may have noticed a lack of mention of the UK here. Well, as mentioned in the past, the restrictive loading gauge of the UK's railway network means that trying to run a double-decker train is like trying to have sex with an invert. No matter how hard you try, it'll keep screaming. We did try a double-decker train in the late 1940s with the Southern Railway Class 4 DD. As a short-term experiment, it lasted only 22 years in service, and were weirdly quite reliable throughout its life. If you wish to recreate the experience of the 4DD yourself, simply ride a low-height street deck during the summer heat wave, as both vehicles clearly had the same individuals working in the design department. Oh, and before I forget, double-decker planes do exist too, though the Airbus A380 is currently awaiting its departure for the next available flight to the aviation equivalent of Long Marston. Loading gauge is one downside with double-decker trains, but another downside is the increased dwell times at stations due to twice as many people trying to alight and board the train at once. Different strategies are employed to try and mitigate this glaring issue, such as the trains on the Paris RERA having 6 doors per coach, or trains like the Dutch DDZ, and especially the 5th generation German Dosto coaches, both of which have huge fuck-off doors wide enough to fit a Range Rover in. The VIRM doesn't implement any of these solutions and instead just likes having long dwell times at stations because lol. Capacity was an issue that had to be rectified earlier anyway, as the VIRM was previously named the DD-IRM when built in 1994, and were formed of 3 and 4 coach trains. An additional coach was added to the 3-car units and 2 additional coaches added to the 4-car units, after it was realized that making the same mistake as the Coploper was an unwise decision. Just like the Coploper, the VIRM and its previous iteration are capable of running in multiple, with 8, 10, and 12 car formations permitted depending on platform lengths, though just as a brief warning, the VIRM lacks selective door opening, so make sure you pay attention if you're using Leiden Central Station. In terms of appearance, it's okay. It's much harder to make a double-decker train look visually pleasing, or sexy at all, since the train has to be made much bigger, but I wouldn't exactly call the VIRM an ugly train. I'd even go as far as to say the liveries the trains have been and have all been good, with my personal favorite being the first refurbished livery which came along in 2015 onwards. This does not apply to the newest refurbishments featuring the Flow livery. I really don't like this livery on the VIRM, and the lack of blue stripes across the windows really makes it feel inferior to the previous liveries that came before. This is a livery that works much better on the ICNG, and it's arguably the most Marmite livery applied to a train in all of Europe. At least the VIRM is fast. Now I don't have a confirmed acceleration rate for these trains, and guessing only gets us so far. I can at least say that the VIRM accelerates at a modest rate, and is rather smooth all the way to top speed with no sudden jerks. The top speed, just like all other trains in the Netherlands, is gagged at 140 km/h due to the crap soil conditions and outdated signaling systems on the trains. That being said, the trains have provisions to allow for both 160 km/h and 25 kV AC running in the future, and whilst the idea of the VIRM running on the high-speed lines is funny, I think I'll be fine with the Trax trains for now. I'd like to briefly talk about the sounds of the VIRM now. The original traction motors fitted in 1994 were Holek DMKTs on a GTO system, which viewers from the Midlands are probably thinking, wait a second, that name sounds familiar. And you're right. Whilst not the exact same type, the old DD-IRM motors are very similar to those on the Class 323. This alone is very surreal, but it's cool to see their influence spread to another country like this. Thanks to this similarity, when hearing the train depart from the outside, the old DD-IRM motors are one of the best sounding trains out there. I repeat, from the outside. On the inside, on the other hand, the old motors had a secret sponsorship with Scotland, as a weird harmonic sound would be made under acceleration, and braking akin to someone playing the bagpipes very loudly. To call this sound annoying would be a severe understatement, and it was progressively changed to the IGBT Alston motors we have today throughout the late 2000s to early 2010s, and the bagpipes were banished to the shadow realm. The final batch of VIRMs built in 2009 were built with Alston motors from the get-go, and whilst the sounds aren't as catchy as the old Holek motors, they are still nice sounding trains, and more importantly, not annoying. I will link some video examples of the old DD-IRM's motors in the description. Bring your own ear protection with you. So what is the VIRM like to ride on? There are technically 4 variations of the VIRM's interior, but for the sake of brevity, the first 2 can be combined into one, though I'll point out differences where applicable. Regardless of which VIRM type you ride on, you will always be gifted with a 2+2 seating arrangement in standard class. Window alignment is next to perfection with the facing seats. However, the top deck windows feel like stretched portholes due to the curvature of the body. The bottom deck windows are considerably bigger, though because of the lower seating position, you'll need to avoid accidentally upskirting passengers on the platforms in the summer months. Passenger information displays are provided at the ends of each coach with clear and vibrant real-time service information, and each seat comes with its own retractable mailbox which is disguised as a bin. The seats themselves on these versions are okay. I slightly prefer the feel of the pink seats when compared to the blue ones fitted to the later versions, but they are all acceptable to ride on, even if I don't like the fixed armrests much. Air conditioning is also provided, and sometimes likes to work. To viewers suffering from post-traumatic low-height street deck disorder, you have no need to fret, as both levels of the train have more than acceptable levels of headroom. You might need to take a bit of care if you are sitting on the top deck when getting off your seat due to the curved roof, but those of average height should have no issues with headroom on this train. Sitting on the higher level can grant you stunning views of the countryside and the city on your journey, at least when you aren't being obscured by trees and tunnels. It also allows the upper class traveling in the Randstad area to quite literally look down on the lower class when arriving at a station. First class is provided on both levels, separated from the peasants by a thin piece of glass nicked from home base. Whilst I still believe first class to be a bit of a scam in the Netherlands, at least it makes sense on an intercity train instead of a pesky shuttle train to Amersfoort. 2+1 seating is provided here, along with charging points and armrests for both seats. I slightly prefer the darker colors of the first generation of VIRMs in first class, but the red seats feel fine too. The vestibule area will vary slightly in each coach, but has a decent amount of standing space at a normal floor height and a pair of staircases for the upper and lower floors respectively. The earlier versions of the VIRM have this thick section between the staircases which housed a catering lift, because catering is a luxury not deserved on intercity trains in the Netherlands. Even before onboard catering was discontinued in 2021, a trolley wasn't even used, and the poor sod would have to carry food and drinks with a bulky apron and backpack. Later generations of the VIRM removed the catering lift altogether, resulting in much wider staircases both up and down stairs. A welcomed improvement if you ask me. If you're wondering how the hell a wheelchair would even board this train, don't worry, as the vestibule area offers a wheelchair space in the appropriate coach, accessible via a fold-away ramp on wheels by station staff. A bit more elegant than the sanded down surfboards used back here in the UK. Toilets are provided on each train, located at the ends of a coach in the vestibules. 2 toilets are in a 4-coach train and 3 toilets in a 6-car train, which I'm led to believe is lower than what they had originally. Apart from the strange pivot point of the door, the standard toilet of the VIRM 1 and 2 is adequate. The disabled toilet is located adjacent the wheelchair space, and just like the cop-oper, uses a hinge door that opens outwards into the vestibule. Not an issue if your name is Davros. A big issue if you're on your own and actually have to use your arms. I will give credit where it's due for the toilet being a very good size though. However, the toilet itself is designed in a very rudimentary way, to say the least. Now I see why it says not to use it at stations. Now let's swap over to the first set of refurbished units. We can see that the trains have been given a nice lick of paint, courtesy of the Gelux dog. Better choices of color and redone lighting have significantly improved the ambience on board the VIRM. This was modeled off the aforementioned DD-Z, with the same great seats and wood colored flooring too. This feels much better than before, nostalgia aside. The tables behind the seats are much bigger and can handle pretty much any gaming laptop you can buy from MediaMarkt. We also have lounge seats right by the staircases, perfect for drawing your French girls on. First class now has seats that look more like what you'd expect in first class now, with softer seats and armrests that you can actually move. You even get the lounge seating in first class as well, so your French girls can still be drawn perfectly. No need to fret about luggage either, as more luggage spaces have been provided near the ends of the coaches, including this one with a folding chair all on its own. Well, you know what they say, the cuck chair is now free. Passenger information screens are still provided, as with the other versions too. This one is showing how fast we are going, and that Mega Rayquaza is currently outside fighting with Deoxys, explaining the temperature being redacted. The standard toilets have been given a nice improvement. Now we have a sliding door, which takes up less space than the swivel one. I cannot confirm if these toilets are chemical versions, or if it dumps the waste onto the track again, but at least it's a bit more welcoming than before. The disabled toilet has been improved too. Whilst it is a tiny bit smaller than before, the door is now running on electricity. I remember in 2019 that the disabled toilet had a small urinal on the opposite side. I seriously have no idea why this was included, unless it was for an assistant who also needed a leak at the same time, but I'll show proof that it existed. When I filmed this clip in 2022, you can see that the urinal has been plated over and is out of use. So far, the VIRM's first refurbishment is the only train I've been on to include a urinal. Make of that what you will. Now let's look at the second refurbishment, which is currently being applied to the later generations of VIRMs, hence the wider staircase. Whilst the lighting and colors are similar to before, we have to sadly say goodbye to the wood effect floors and staircases. We have different seats as well, still with big tables, But most importantly, USB charging is now available throughout the train, even in standard class. Fantastic. Now you can stream episodes of Wow Wow Wubsy without fear of your iPad running low. The seats are still fine to sit on despite the different shape, and even when I had a cheeky look at the disabled toilet, the only changes I noticed was the door button being different, the urinal being fully removed, and that all the toilets are now chemical ones, which is good. I don't really have much more to add regarding this refurbishment. It's fine to me, except the flow livery. The future of the VIRM is quite stable for the time being, whilst the Netherlands Spoorwegen have been looking into investing into a new fleet of intercity trains. They are still in the concept stages as of the date of making this video, and as Yowie has found out the hard way, reviewing a train that isn't built yet is a very bad thing to do, so let's just wait and see what happens for now. Conclusion. I'd say that the VIRM is not only a good train in my eyes, but if you exclude the flow livery, it's one of the few trains that has been significantly improved over the years. Almost every change and update it has been given since introduction has made the VIRM a better train than what it was previously, which is such a rare thing to see in this day and age, not just for transport. The almighty rule of cool with it being a double-decker train also helps, since whether you are 5 years old or 65 years old, there is something unanimously cool about the sheer existence of a double-decker train. Some viewers might be wondering if I think the VIRM is better than the Koploper. Well, I still slightly prefer the seats on the Koploper if you ask me, but assuming it wasn't the rush hour, I'd be happy with either of these turning up. They're both good trains and both are better at being intercity trains than the 387. That being said, I do wonder what it would be like if we could fuse the two trains together. We could have the capacity of the VIRM, but with the seating of the Koploper. Let's equip the Potara rear rings and see what happens. I don't know how to feel about that. Well, now you know my thoughts on the VIRM. Go out there and enjoy your 4-car service from Schiphol Airport to Nijmegen in the rush hour. You will never be safe from short-form trains, no matter where you run.